Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Above and Below Haunted. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Above and Below Haunted. So there will be ghosts, and if you know me, I love ghosts. It's not too scary, but there is a lot of flavor in this game, so it does get a little bit spooky. But that being said, thank you to Red Raven Games for sponsoring this video. This is a current GameFound campaign that you can check out the link down below to see the campaign. But that being said, there's also going to be a gameplay on the Board Game Co channel with Alex and I, either before or after this video, I'm not sure, but I highly suggest checking that one out. And with that, we're going to dive right into Above and Below Haunted. Now, looking at the table in front of you, this is mid-game setup for 2 players. Also, this is a 2-player game in the middle of the game because I think that would show you the most out of what you're able to accomplish throughout the rounds. But that being said, you have your main reputation board here, and that's where you will track all of the rounds. Now, after that, I don't think it's too confusing to jump in mid-game to show you the different actions that you're able to do because your player boards do a great job of showing you everything that you're able to do. And it's basically a worker placement game where you're going to be assigning your different workers to different actions and using them to accomplish as many victory points as possible through different means, such as set collection for the different types of goods that are available, as well as the different houses and outposts that you're able to build, and the different caverns that you're able to explore. So again, bringing us back to this reputation track here, you have your reputation board where you're going to be able to track the different rounds. Now, a typical game is 7 rounds. You are able to play a longer game, which would be 8 rounds instead, but the game is played over the course of 7 rounds in which you will be assigning your different workers. Now, players have all of their individual player boards here, and this is where your different workers are going to stay. Now, you do have 3 that you start with at the beginning of the game. Those are not the 3. These are the 3 that you would start with at the beginning of the game. And you can see that one only provides different dice for lanterns, one provides dice for lanterns as well as a quill symbol, and one is dice for lanterns as well as a hammer symbol. So we're going to get into what those mean now, but when you are looking at your player board, you have your exhausted side, which is when you choose to use them for different actions, and there's also an injured side if you decide to exert them, which we'll get to in a second. But when they're in this area, they're ready for you to be able to use, and looking very clearly at your player board, it's going to show you not only what the actions you're able to do, but what you need to be able to accomplish those actions. So looking at the first one, you are able to explore, which is going to be exploring in these different caves. When you're doing that, this shows you that you need at least 2 different people assigned to the caves to be able to explore, so no one can go alone. Now, when you are choosing to go to these caves, you do see what's available with the different entry numbers, but really trying to decide anything from those entry numbers would be absolutely crazy because there's this storybook that is included that has over 100 entries, and again, this is, I don't think I said this yet, and I'm so sorry, but this is a prototype copy, especially something like this, where it will be a book for you in the future. Keep an eye on the GameFound page for everything that they have and exactly what they plan for that to look like, but there is this book that has all of these different entries, so I think when you are looking at these different caves, you're definitely deciding between the easier and the harder one, but I don't think there's really any distinction in deciding between the different numbers because that can be really hard and insane to kind of try to know the difference. So you're looking at these different cave cards, and you can see that this has a 2 to 6 lantern, and this one has a 5 to 11 plus a pearl. That means that's the general difficulty cost of succeeding when you're taking the explore action, which we're going to get to in more detail, but that's why you would choose one over the other, because one is more difficult, but it would give you a pearl. Now, we are mid-game, so let's go a little crazy, and we'll see if we can do this 5 to 11 cave action. So if you choose this card to do, you're going to choose how many people you want to commit to this. And knowing that this is hard, I'm going to commit 2 of my best people. They provide 3 lanterns each, and just to be safe, I'm going to commit a 3rd person. So I'm sending all 3 of these people to explore in this cave, and then I'm going to roll a die to determine which entry is going to be read. So I'm going to roll here, and we rolled a 2, so we're going to read entry 140. Now, again, this is going to be a final copy for you when you have the game, but we are going to go to 140 now. Slight spoilers for one specific entry. Just warning you, skip ahead like maybe a minute if you don't want to know the spoilers, but I don't think it's going to be bad. 140 actually says turn to 139, so let's see what that does. And 139 is a waterlogged causeway built of scrap wood splits ahead. One path climbs the cavern wall to a perched settlement on the edge of a cliff. The other path leads toward eerie sunken ruins. So we can choose to, and again, someone would be reading this for you, so you wouldn't really see everything on here. It should be secret, but I'm alone right now. But your choices are climb to the settlement, which is 139.4, or venture toward the ruins, explore 6, 139.5. Now where it says that explore 6, we'll get into exactly how you succeed in a moment, but those are those lanterns that I talked about, that you need at least 6 lanterns to be able to succeed that challenge. Now the other one where it directs me to a different entry, that's just going to give me more choices. I'm not going to choose that one for the sake of the game and showing as little as possible, but that would present me with other explore options where I would still have to make a specific check to try to succeed. So we are going to venture toward the ruins, which is 139.5. The wooden walkway leads toward half-sunken archways, broken gargoyles, and crumbling walls. Something glows sickly green in the water below. The walkway. Soon there are 2 glowing figures, then dozens. They rise above the water, surrounding you, watching the pale faces, reaching toward you with rotting fingers. A great town once flourished here, below the ground. We have mourned long enough. We must wander somewhere new. To the surface! We require the company of the living! So you can see, like, these creatures are now coming out of these caves that you decided to venture into, because you decided to go deeper into them in the more dangerous ones. The ghosts scream, circling the cavern in an ectoplasmic storm. They fly upward until they disappear. You eat a bit of cheese to recover your wits, looting the ruins before returning home. So you were successful and able to do something, but it still definitely freaked you out. Your reward is 1 ghost, 4 coins, 2 crabs, adventure card 15, which is an event that applies to all players, and if you got the bonus, it would be 3 additional coins. Now, to get the bonus, you would have to get at least 2 above whatever the explore value is. So where this explore value was 6, you would need at least an 8. If it was 7, you would need 9. If it's 3, you need 5, etc. It's very easy to know that you just need 2 more to get the bonus benefits. Now, where this was a 5 through 11 one as well, I would get a pearl for succeeding. And we'll get into what that means when we go into the different items, but that's just something else that would happen. So yeah, all the things that we're gaining, I'm going to go over, like the ghosts and the crabs and the adventure cards, but that's a little bit about what would happen when you take the explore action. Now also when you do that, you would then take the different card and you would place this cave below your in your lower area. Will make it so that you're able to place outposts over this area, because for an outpost building to exist, a cave has to be placed beneath it first. This is an incentive for you to not only explore caves for the different bonuses that they'll give you and accumulating things like the pearls, but you are also able to now build more outposts, which are going to give you a whole bunch of different things. Now, to explain how you would succeed in these explore checks, you would look at the different dice values for your different people that you sent along to explore. And you would roll a die individually for each of them, and you do have to note which one you're rolling for when you're rolling, because it is different difficulties depending on them, and so each roll should be individual as opposed to rolling all of your dice as a pool and then being able to allocate the different successes. So if we were rolling for him, we would be able to roll a 4, which is good but not great. Then we would roll a 1 for him, which is absolutely terrible, but then for our third person, we would also roll a 1, which is I usually roll well, but this is how I've been rolling in this game, which is absolutely crazy, but nothing to do with the preview. But looking at this, where we have a 4, on a 3 or higher, then he would get 2 lanterns, or on a 6, he would get 3 lanterns. So he's bringing us 2 lanterns there, and this person here would give us 1 for 1, or if they had at least 3, they would give us 2 lanterns, so they're also providing only 1 lantern. So between these two, we have 3 lanterns, and with him, we have 0. But something that you will gain throughout the game is boats. Boats are something that you are also able to exhaust and use in your adventures. You're either able to do it as a free action to gain a gold coin, or you are able to spend it to get an automatic 6 on any of the dice that you rolled. So where I rolled both of these ones, I would be able to spend both of these and turn those both into 6s to get the best result possible instead. So now my total instead would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and our explorer was a 6, meaning that we would succeed. Now that being said, it was an Explore 6, and only 8 would have given us the bonus, so we might have chosen not to use our second boat and left this one at a 1, giving us just the 1 lantern with a total of 6, saving this for a featured action instead. Now, bear with me because I have thrown a lot of information at you and we are only through the first action. Now, it is one of the most complicated and it is one of the longest, as you are going to be reading these different entries and players are going to be making choices and hearing a bit of narrative. Everything else isn't going to have that narrative element. They're going to be very straightforward actions, and with that, we're going to jump into them. Now, the next action is the build action, and in order to do that, the villager that you use has to have a hammer icon. This is how you're going to get different houses and outposts in your different player board areas and be building out your tableau to trigger different effects, but they will have to have this specific icon to be able to take this action. Now, to do this, you'll move them over to the exhausted side of your mat, and then you will choose the card that you want to purchase, but you also have to have enough gold to be able to do so. So, for example, for this player here, we have a newly gained cave, we could buy one of these to give us a new thing. So looking at this card here, it provides a item type that is new to us, which again we'll get to in a second, but this would be a really great card to buy. So for 7 coins, we are going to pay in and make our change here. Let's see, we'll do this for this. And then we were able to play this card over here, and then you would slot the available resources onto the card. So in this example where this card provides thorn fruit, you would then take 2 thorn fruit resources and place them onto this card, and this one also provides an action for you at the end of every round. For this one, your reputation would go up, which again, I'll explain when I get to it, but this action would allow you to move your reputation once up every night phase. Now this does give you 2 resources that you still have to collect off of your board, but that is a reason to buy different buildings to get these resources. So again, before we move on from the build action, you have to have the specific number of coins to be able to play to take the card. And if you're playing an outpost, you have to have a cave to be able to play underneath it. And you'll be choosing different cards for different reasons, which we'll get into the strategy behind that in a moment. But there are specific star cards here that are in play that are always available every game. And those, once they are taken, they are not replenished. The same is for these key cards. However, the key cards are variable and you don't always play with all of them, but the cards from both of these markets here will always replenish as soon as they are purchased. That way every player, whenever purchasing, always has 4 choices. One final thing to note while we are here is that for a free action, players can pay 1 coin to refresh either of these markets. They can only refresh one of the rows, so they would have to choose, but they would be able to pay a gold coin to take the 4 cards showing, put them under the deck, and unveil 4 new cards to give them a bit of more choice if they have the funds to do so. Now moving on to the next action, that's going to be Banish. And for Banish, this is how you are getting rid of your ghosts. Now we haven't gotten to how you get your ghosts yet, which will be next, but this is how you would banish your different ghosts. So you can see here on these different cards, these players have ghosts that are in play. And if you have a character which has the quill on them, which is shown on the player board, if you have the quill, you are able to move them to your exhausted area to banish a ghost. Now, when banishing a ghost here on the reputation track, it'll show you what would specifically happen depending on the area in which the ghost is banished to. So if the ghost is banished to a house with a bed, then you would get a mystic brew and 3 coins. Or if you banish them down here to an outpost, then you would get a mystic brew as well as a boat, which boats are, as I said, are extremely useful. They're able to move around here and gain you either a coin or a 6 success when exploring in the caves. And over here, if you are able to place in a house that does not contain a bed, such as this house here, you are able to move 2 up on this reputation track and take 2 coins as well. So banishing ghosts is really good for you. It's not only very lucrative, but you are also forcing ghosts onto your opponent, and I'll get into why that hurts in just a little bit. Now the next action that players are able to do is hire, and that's how you are going to gain villagers that are new for you to be able to have more actions throughout the game as the rounds go on. So if you want to take this action instead, it must be a villager that has a quill on them. but you were able to exhaust them to come here to the market to hire a villager. Now, when you are hiring a villager, for each one that you were choosing, you will pay the appropriate cost. So for example, if I wanted this villager here, I would pay 3 coins, or if I wanted this villager, I would have to pay 5 coins instead. Now, there are different reasons why you might want a particular villager, not just the different symbols that they provide, such as the hammer or the quill, or how well they're able to have the different lanterns in the explore phase. But something else that is going to happen is, depending on where they are purchased from, you're going to get a different repercussion, because some are good and some are bad. So here you have the Mystic Brews, that if you hire someone that is worth 4 or 5 gold, you'll get a Mystic Brew, which I'll get into what those mean, but obviously it's a good resource and you're going to gain those on your player area. But if you hire someone that is 2 or 3 cost, they are going to come with a ghost. And thematically, this means that they took a shortcut, they went through the woods, they got there as quickly as possible, and they brought a ghost along, and that's just what's happening now. So these ghosts are going to negatively affect your reputation until you are able to banish them, and then you'll have those really good effects. So if this player here wanted to purchase this character, which would give them the hammer, but they are the cheapest to purchase, so that may be a good idea, they would move them over here to their exhausted area and pay 2 coins, and then they would also take a ghost and have to place it in an applicable area. Another difference with this action is that this board does not replenish until the end of the round. So there are only so many villagers available each round. The most that could be bought every game is 5 per round. And with the cards over here, they are unlimited and you always have the choice of 4 to purchase from. Finally, the last action is labor, and all villagers are able to take the labor action. However, if they do have a hammer, they are a bit stronger. When you take a labor action, you're able to harvest from your different cards, which is where we place the resources. Now, if you use just a regular villager or a quill villager, then you're only able to harvest 1 resource. However, if you are able to use one that has a hammer, you are able to take both resources off of the board, and then regardless of which villager you use, you'll move them over to the exhausted side, and you'll also gain a coin. So that's a way for you to gain money throughout the game, to be purchasing different things. You'll gain a money every time you take that action. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about these resources and what you're going to be doing with them. But for example, this player board over here already has 5 different resources slotted. So this is the thorn fruit. They would slot it up here, and this is going to allow them to increase their income. Throughout the game, as you are placing these, your income will go up, but you would start with 3, and for each one you slot, it will rise. So for this one here, where they placed the thorn fruit, they would now bring their income up to 9, but they also have this card here which gives them +1, so their income is actually 10 at the end of each round. Now that is one reason to be slotting these, but the symbol next to them is going to be the end game victory points when you are scoring at the end of the game, and for each of these resources that you have here, you will score that many victory points. So you can see that these early rows are worth less, where they are 1s and then 2s, but for example here, these are worth 3 for each token here, meaning that that's 6 points at the end of the game. This is another 8, and this would be another 8. So that's a way for you to accumulate your different resources for a lot of points at the end of the game. Over here, this player has a lot of crabs stacked in this area, meaning that the more resources you have in the later rows, the higher points you'll be able to score for those resources. One final thing that you're also able to do with resources is that you are able to offer them for sale to your opponent. So you can put them up for sale to any opponents, and they have to pay at least 3 gold, and the only thing that they're able to trade is gold and mystic brews for those resources. But if you feel you have enough, or if you want to sell ones that you have a lot from your earlier sets, then you may choose to sell them. You can only have 1 for sale per turn, but both putting an item up for sale and purchasing one is a free action for the players that choose to do so. Now, it can also be very strategic to be the first to collect a specific resource type, because when you do so, you come over here to the reputation board and you place your cube of your color on that specific resource type. So here for the thorn fruit, where this player just played it, they would take one of their cubes and place it on this track, showing that that's how many points they will get for being the first to claim that type of resource at the end of the game. So it is broken out by the resource type. I'll move this down now so that you can see all of the types showing. but for example, the squid and the fish would each be worth 4 victory points at the end of the game, whereas the more common things like rice are only worth 1 victory point. Now those are the actions that you're able to take with your different villagers, as well as the free actions that you can take throughout the game. And with that, you are going to play through the 7 different rounds, taking all of those actions, but something that is also equally as important is you're going to go through the end of round effects. Now you're using all of your villagers and moving them over to either exhausted and injured, and I actually didn't mention, but for injured, you are able to injure one of your villagers to be able to have another additional success. So for example, if I didn't have a boat to get additional successes from these guys, I would have been able to move some of them over to injured to also get an additional lantern. Now, as you can see on this track and how we are going to move them in a moment, they would be a lot slower to come back into play to be able to use. So injuring them isn't necessarily the best thing to do, but sometimes it can be a good choice, especially if you have Mystic Brews available. So with that, at the end of the round, the first thing that will happen is the round marker will turn. So this player was the first player, and now the first player card will come over to this player. And then after that, the ghosts will haunt. So for the number of ghosts that you have in your area, you will move back on the reputation track. So for example, this player here currently has 4 ghosts, meaning that they would move back to over here, and this player would not move at all. Then after the ghosts haunt is when you would replenish this area, so you would gain any new villagers by moving these down and replenishing the empty spots. And then after that is when you would rest your villagers, which is extremely important. So for all of the villagers that you have, you would need beds to be able to move them over to the ready spot. You are first able to spend Mystic Brews, which is going to have them be able to move over 1 spot. Additionally, because only 1 villager can sleep in 1 bed per turn, meaning that the beds on your cards are only going to make it so you can move them once over. So in this example, I could use my Mystic Brew here to move this villager over to here, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 beds available. So I could easily move 3 of them from the beds over to here, and then I would have a choice of what to do with the 4th bed. With the 4th bed, I could move this villager over to ready, or I could move this injured villager over to exhausted, and then these 2 would be in exhausted, ready to be moved over to ready in the next round. This is the only time that you're able to move your villagers in this way and use your Mystic Brews and things like that. So it's very, very important and strategic to plan out your moves and what abilities you may need and who you need to rest. And this can also be a reason why you are trading for Mystic Brews in your different trades for the goods that you put for sale. Now, boats are unique, where boats just always move between exhausted and ready for you. You don't need a bed for them, they will just move. And there are also special characters, such as robots, that cannot drink Mystic Brews, but they also don't need a bed. After that is when you will collect your income for the next round. So, for example, this player here, as I said, would collect the 9 coins for their set collection, as well as an additional coin because of this card played here, meaning that they would get 10 coins gained for the next round. Finally, during the end of round, there are some cards that will allow you to refresh goods that you have collected. So for example, this squid here has the refresh symbol, meaning that every night it will replenish a squid for this player to be able to collect every round. Now within this loop of play, something that I haven't gotten to touch on quite yet is when you are exploring these caves and going through the different narrative things, there's also this deck over here for encounter cards. So there are a whole bunch of encounter cards that you can gain, which will change the game either for the player that encountered them or for everyone at the table. So there are these cards that will be drawn, making every game unique and giving you a reason to explore through these different caves, especially the dangerous ones, because cool stuff is going to happen to you. Overall, Above and Below is a very tight and strategic game of worker placement and acquiring these different cards with your tableau building, but it also has an extremely strong narrative element that even for very strategic players, I think it'll be very enjoyable to hear about the different things that are happening and the challenges that you are trying to accomplish, especially when you're presented with a lot of choices and you feel you have a bit of agency over what your character would do and what you feel you want to try to go for. At the beginning of the game, you're going to start off with only 3 villagers, and it's going to be a tight action system where you're going to want to explore right away, but you're also going to want to hire other villagers to be able to have more future actions. But it's also important to have enough beds to rest them, so you're also going to be searching for those bed cards, as well as the different items that you're going to have for your resources to be able to bump up your economy, to have you be able to afford all of those things I just said the next round. It's going to be a lot of pushing your very last coin to be able to purchase the things that you need and have your team able to bounce back when you need them to for the next round. There are a lot of decisions to be made in the game between the different resources that you're going for, as well as which ones you choose to sell, as well as when you hold off on your villagers with the quill actions and when you are sending ghosts back and forth to other players. Because when you do have those ghosts at the end of the game on this reputation track, whoever has the most will score different victory points, and in a 2-player game only one person will score victory points, but you also score additional victory points depending on where you are on the track. So if these 2 players ended up here at the end of the game, the green player would have 5 plus 3 victory points, and the silver player would have 3 victory points at the end of the game. So this is really important because it goes as low as a -7, which can be super detrimental to your opponent if you're able to send a lot of ghosts their way once they aren't really able to fight off. Now this can be really fun because you are trying to both send ghosts off to your opponent, but hoping that they don't send them back to you, because they can be really detrimental throughout the game to affect your reputation, as well as when you are placing them, you are getting a lot. So not only are you gaining things when you send them, but you are giving a ghost to your opponent to send back to you, which will also gain them coins and things like that. Now, just to go over what endgame scoring looks like one more time, is that you will look at this reputation track, as I said, for the different things that you will get, and you will also get the different points for the ingredients where you were the first one to have them available. This represents that you were able to have them available in your market at your outposts before anybody else, but you would gain these victory points as well as these for the points on the reputation track, and then looking at your player board, you would score the different victory points for the resources that you have gained, as well as your different building cards. So for your houses and for your outposts, you will get a point for all of them. And this includes not only houses and your outposts, but key houses and star houses. When you are able to accumulate those, you'll get a point for each. And then after that, you'll get any victory points that are on the cards that you have acquired. So for example, here, this outpost has 2 victory points on it. And that's a reason to purchase these star cards once you have the economy toward the end of the game, because a lot of them can give you a huge amount of points. For example, this one is 10 victory points, plus 1 for every villager that you have, which if you've been working on getting a lot of villagers throughout the game, that can be a huge amount of points for you. Overall, above and below is going to be a lot of worker placement and set collection as you are working towards your tableau building with these cards and working toward the different resources, but it's going to have this fun narrative element that you're going to interact with as well, and a bit of choose your own adventure where you are going to have a story that you're interacting with that you can really be enchanted by. You can check out this campaign with their game found link down below. As I said, thank you to Red Raven Games for sponsoring this video, and there is a gameplay either now or in the future on the channel as well that you are able to check out if you want to see even more about the game, and especially more about the different narrative elements that you were able to get into. I'm Professor Meg, and thank you all for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!